My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you are listening to This Is Metal with Joe Lawson. Welcome once again, my good friend Joe Lawson. This week we're going to be talking about all things Tim Ripper Owens, which that was a topic you decided you wanted to kind of discuss, and I think it's a cool topic. Because Tim Ripper Owens, he's very very talented dude, and I think also very underrated, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. And yeah, he's actually one of my favorite singers, man. I mean, after everything that the guy's been through and all the records that he's been on, the guy's just a workhorse. I mean, he just doesn't stop, man.
Yeah,
he just goes and goes and goes, and that's inspiring, man. And the guy's just super talented and real nice, down to earth guy, man.
Yeah, and I think he's got the right.
He's kind of he kind of reminds me of Dio. You know, he's kind of got that aura about him, and he's like I said, he's down to earth. He appreciates his fans, and you know, he's kind
of got the right attitude. I mean, especially in this dang age of the music industry being what it is today. I mean, the days of being in a one band for like 40 years or something like that. It's not heard of too often. So the fact that he's willing to kind of take part in any project that comes his way that he thinks is worthwhile, I mean, that's pretty cool that he's got that attitude. And as a result of that, he's created this legacy, I think, for himself, very much like John Corabi, the singer who replaced Vince Neil in Motley Crue. Corabi's also one of these guys that he does solo shows, and when Corabi goes out and does these solo shows, he sings everything, from all throughout his career, Motley Crue stuff, the Scream, Union, stuff off his solo albums. And Tim Ripper Owens kind of got that same attitude, and you got to respect the guy, first of all, to even attempt to try to fill the shoes of Rob Halford, and not only to attempt, but to actually be able to do it,
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, there's a lot of people have mixed feelings on that, especially with a band like Judas Priest. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think it would have mattered who it was took Rob Halford's place. Yeah. They were going to face the same kind of critics and the same kind of thing, So I think he did a very tactful, very respectful, and a very good job of it. And there's even some songs that I like him singing better, actually.
Yeah, and
I dare say. And I'm a huge Halford fan, absolutely. One of my most biggest influences by far.
Yeah.
But that being said, just giving credit where credit's due. Yeah. There's some stuff that Ripper just ripped it up, man. I mean, it was awesome to hear him do songs like Rapid Fire on the live 98 Meltdown, his version of Diamonds and Rust, and Desert Plains. I mean, he did just a phenomenal job and put his own thumbprint on it. Oh, yeah. He wasn't Rob Halford. He was being himself, and I think he did a damn good job of it.
That's hard to do. And, around that same time that Ripper joined up with Priest is when Bruce Dickinson also left Iron Maiden. And I bring that up only because at the time these two major British metal bands lost their frontman. And nothing against Blaze Bayley. He did a pretty good job as well. But I do think fans, for whatever reason, were more accepting of Ripper Owens and taking the place of Rob Halford. I don't know why that is, but it seemed that Priest fans were a little more accepting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, my 2 cents is only my 2 cents, but I think he's 10 times the singer Blaze Bayley is.
Yeah.
And hands down.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting also to consider the fact that Priest, for most of his career, has been known as a British, British steel, British metal band, whatever you want to refer to them as. And actually, at the time, Scott Travis was the first American guy to ever join up the ranks of Judas Priest, and then obviously Tim Ripper being the second American to ever join the ranks of the band.
Right, yeah. When I didn't know what to expect either, when I heard the rumors, that Halford had left. And then when the Jugulator record came out, I was just like, man, where'd they find this guy? This is awesome. This amazing. And to me, it made sense coming from where they left off with Halford with Painkiller.
Yeah.
To me, that was a logical next step. And I thought it sounded great. I mean, how can you go wrong with songs like Cathedral Spires? I mean, what a masterpiece of metal. I mean, wow.
And what's interesting is, also at the time, you may remember, Priest got dropped from, its label, Columbia Records, and they went a much smaller label at the time. I think it was called CMC International Records or something like that. And, the fans still kind of stayed loyal. But they were on a much smaller level, and then as far as the label goes, and then we no longer had the partnership of Halford, Tipton, and Downing. Just kind of KK and Glenn Tipton took over all the writing, and even though they had this great singer, they didn't really want him involved in the writing. They go, okay, we're going to take over everything.
Yeah. I mean, again, the politics are
that's what
are hard to
figure out.
They're hard to navigate to some degree. I mean, I'm sure if you ask each member of Priest, they got their own version of it that might be slightly different.
Yeah.
And that's just like with anything, really. It really is, So I try not to get too wrapped up into that or pay too much attention to it. I mean, just because as a fan, I love metal, and if I like a singer or I like a band, I want to try staying true to the music. You know what I mean?
Well,
I respect and I love their music, but maybe I don't agree with their lifestyle or their choices of this or that, and that's okay. I don't have to. I'm not listening to their music to try and get engaged to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, well, I'll tell you why I bring that up though. Is it's interesting because like Tim Ripper Owens, I think as much as we love everything he's put out to date, I think he's only scratched the surface with what's possible. Like, it amazes me as amazing of a singer as he is, you'd think that he would have put out more than one solo album by now. And
well, that's just because he's so incredibly busy, and he gets so many offers that he's constantly on the road and recording. I mean, up until the COVID thing happened, the guy was literally constantly on tour with Three Tremors and with his solo band and Dio Disciples, and he's just a work machine.
A warhorse, as they say. And I will say that's one of my favorite things he's currently involved in, the Three Tremors, which is him, Sean Peck, and the singer from Jag Panzer. I mean, what an amazing concept to come up with 3 lead singers like that. It was a great idea. I mean, in all honesty, truthfulness, it was Halford and Jeff Tate and Bruce Dickinson that was gonna do that. So it wasn't a completely original idea. No. But it's obvious, it wasn't. They're the ones that actually made it happen. Sean and Tim and Harry. Oddly enough,
they did a phenomenal job of it. I mean,
oddly enough,
put out a monster of a record and toured relentlessly, and they pounded it into the pavement. They sounded great live. I went up and seen them when they came up through my neck of the woods, and what a great show, man! They just tore it up.
I mean, on paper, the original concept for it, I mean, it looked really great, and I think it's one of those things. As great as it looks on paper, the politics of everything, and working everybody's schedule around to try to make it happen, probably just too impossible a thing. But I interviewed Sean Peck about it, and he was telling me, originally it was a project that Halford, Tate, and Dickinson had discussed doing, and he goes, they never did anything with them, and he says, I forget who he said he reached out to, but he says, I kind of asked him, hey, you guys never did anything with that. Do you mind if I do some of this? And sure, go ahead. And so I guess he got the permission to do it. But what a cool thing, kind of take the negative idea.
Yeah, I'm glad he did. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, and then he said one of the reasons he picked because it was actually Sean Peck that got the project going. He told me one of the reasons he actually reached out to Tim was because he says actually when Tim had first joined Priest, Cage did one of the tours he was on. We were the opening band, and that's how I initially got to know Tim. I was just amazed with what he was doing on stage, during that tour.
Right. Yeah, great singer. Yeah. We were lucky enough with Scream King on the new Scream King record that's coming out. Tim sings a song with me. called Trail of Death.
Now talk a little bit. But now, were you guys in the studio together? Did you kind of do it the modern way? Like, did you send him the tracks and he added his vocal, or what was the approach there?
Yeah. I mean, we sent him the track, and I had everything wrote out and told him to do his thing, and he recorded some killer tracks and sent them back, and we mixed them, and it sounds great. It's phenomenal.
Wow.
It's a song called Trail of Death.
Wow.
About the last hurrah for Tecumseh and his tribe out there. Actually, right here in my neck of the woods here in Indiana.
Oh, wow.
And it's part of history, and I'm glad he was available and able to do it, and he did a phenomenal job. And had James Rivera from Hellstar. He also sang on that one with us. And so it's a killer track.
So is it when we hear it, it's going to sound like the three of you singing together?
Yes.
Oh, that's
yeah. But each guy sings a verse, you know, and then we sing the choruses together. You know, so we did the same thing with the title track, "The Indomitable Spirit." Ronnie Monroe, former Metal Church vocalist, and Harry, also from Jag Panzer Speed Tremors, and myself, do that song.
Now that I'm just thinking about the number of vocal tracks that must have taken and to master it and all and get it all finalized.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work. I mean, we've been working on it for a long time, and we kind of took some time off and did separate projects and had other things, life events going on, and it's just kind of,
I'm glad
taking
to see.
Taking a long way around, but I'm excited for it to get released, and there's a lot of really cool stuff like that on it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that all those cool cats are going to be featured on your album. I mean, just Ronnie Monroe, he's another guy I've been friends with over years and interviewed. It's been a number of years, of course, since I've had a chance to talk to him, since, just last year he recently lost his wife, and he's been going through a lot and just kind of getting back into music. So I love to hear that he's part of what you're doing as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And so,
but going back to Tim, man, another great record that Tim did and was a part of was the project with Richard Christie.
Oh, yeah. I forget what it's called, but I know what you're talking about. You have to look that up. That's right up.
Yeah, actually, I just drew a blank.
Walls of Jericho.
I forgot the name.
Was that it? So, Walls of Jericho?
So that goes to show that it's not scripted. Yeah. We really do shoot from the hip sometimes.
Hey, let me ask you, Joe. It just popped in my head, I think. Was that Walls of Jericho?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, well, I'll have to look that up and kind of update people on that next time.
Creatures of the Damned was the record.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's,
I think. But it was just a phenomenal record. And Jason Sukoff, the guy who produced the last couple of Death Angel records, played guitar on it. Wow. And I mean, it's just mind-blowing good. I mean, I love the record. Yeah. The lyrics are great. The music's just phenomenal. The musicianship, the guys that played on that record are just insanely good musicians. Yeah, wow. Another kind of oddball track that he did, it was one of those things, kind of a fun little thing that I think people weren't really expecting, but I appreciate it for what it was. He did a track with Yngwie Malmsteen, like a cover of Michael Jackson's Beat It. I don't know if you ever got a chance to do that, but it was featured Tim. No, never heard that one. That's a new one on me. I'll have to check that out.
I have to look that up on YouTube, but that's kind of a little. But I'll tell you, he did one of these all those tribute records that used to come out. that guy Bob Killick used to produce. He was on one they did called "Butchering the Beatles." It was a tribute, like a metal tribute to the Beatles, and
I love it. Butchering the Beatles. That's awesome.
And he did a great cover of "Hey Jude." Again, it's one of those tracks you might not expect Tim Ripper Owens to kind of cover, but just for that fact alone, that gave it that little fun factor,
Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's cool, man.
Yeah. In fact, maybe I'll post it later so you can check it out on my Facebook page. But
I just remember the name, Charred Walls of the Damned.
There you go.
I knew it would come to me eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a couple. He's done a couple of records with those guys, and just again, amazing stuff. And it just goes to show how talented Tim really is. Yeah. I mean, he can do the really heavy stuff like that. And then another record that he put out there I just love, and I constantly listen to it. It's called A New Revenge. Okay. And it's more commercial rock, but it's just really solid, great songwriting.
I think I know
and the guys he did that with, they hit it out of the park. And I really would have liked to see them launch a big tour behind that, because what a really damn good album that was.
Yeah, I think oftentimes he gets involved in like kind of these low budget projects from the standpoint of, like, they have a label, Frontiers Records, that put out all these great records by these artists that were huge in the 80s, and sometimes they put like George Lynch and Michael Sweet, they had a band together, and they've done like 2 or 3 albums together, but then they just don't have the finances to take it on the road, the label, you know? It's kind of...
Well, yeah, I mean, the sad reality is people don't support music like they used to.
Yeah.
And even phenomenal vocalists like Tim Owens, that's why he's got to be in 5 bands at a time.
Yeah.
You know, if he wants to make a living, he's got to work his ass off.
Yeah, and you know, he's been involved with a couple, like, real high-profile bands and projects that I think if they would have kept him in the lineup, that they could have... they could have gone to the next level. I mean, perfect example of that is like, I love the first album he did with Iced Earth, and I thought, okay, this is a perfect band for Tim Owens, and I thought,
yeah, me too. Both those records that Tim did with Iced Earth, I'm a fan of, and I was like, wow, man. I mean, honestly, I always thought Iced Earth was a good band. Don't get me wrong, but I was never like a huge fan. When Tim came on, I was like, man, this is the best Ice Earth I've ever heard.
See, I'm with you there, and that's the point I'm making is, of course, heard of John Schaefer and his guitar playing, but see, I think part of the reason that band's had such trouble, like, reaching major label success or being able to have any kind of identity is they're constantly changing singers, where if you get a guy like Tim Ripper Owens, got a little bit of a fan base of his own to bring into the picture, and they, after 2 albums, for whatever reason, they let him go. And they're like, oh, it's no big deal. Time to move on. But, see, I think a lot of people will go and buy those 2 records he was on just because he was on it, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And again, I'm not wanting to get involved in all the politics and stuff as much. But you know what? From what I've seen on some interviews and stuff, from what Tim said, it was a pretty nasty raw deal that he got with those guys, and it was a bad, sour kind of splitting of ways. And that's unfortunate, because the guy doesn't deserve that.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing with a band like Metal Church. I mean, I was a fan like when Ronnie Monroe was in there. They got the original guy Mike Howe back now, but I think part of when you think of Metal Church, a lot of people think of the guitar player Kurt Vanderhoof, because it's his band and stuff, but see, that's another band that, even though they got the original guy back, they've had trouble like having any kind of major label success, because they're constantly having new frontmen. They've had at least 3 or 4 different frontmen throughout the years.
Yeah. I mean, there's different. There's the whole generation of Mike Howe songs from Metal Church, and there's the David Wayne era that Ronnie kind of came in, and he was a perfect fit for that, and he could do that very, very well. Yeah. He brought that back to life, and really he breathed that breath of fresh air back into Metal Church when he came into Metal Church. And Ronnie's a good close personal friend of mine as well. So, but.
And it's kind of...
I mean, he's still going to make music, and you're still going to hear records and stuff from him, for sure.
I'll say this, it's kind of funny, the last Ronnie Monroe Metal Church album he did, he came back for about 1 album, I remember it was called Generation Nothing, and yet, I'm surprised that he only lasted 1 record for whatever reason, like you said, but I say that because it was just such an amazing album. He comes back for this 1 album, and just from top to bottom, it was all killer, as they say, no filler.
Actually, Ronnie did, I think, 5 or 6 different records with Metal Church.
Yeah. But over the course of his career, but there was 1 album he came back and did that final album, and like I said, it was such a good album. I was surprised it only lasted for 1 more album.
Right, yeah. Again, the finances and politics, and personalities, and when I was young, I used to watch my grandfather play in a band, play guitar. And I asked him when I was really young, I said, what's it like being in a band, Grandpa? And he smiled, looked down at me, and he told me, he said, it's like being married to 5 different people all at the same time. And boy, was he right.
Oh, wow. So let me ask you, in regards to the track you were talking about that Tim is going to be on the new Scream Kings album, as well as the other guys, like, did you initially say, oh, this would be perfect for Tim Owens, and what was it like for you to reach out to him and have him respond? Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to take part in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought originally the song was right up his alley, and he did a phenomenal job. Wait to hear it, I mean, yeah, I was thrilled and honored and excited, of course. It was like, oh, this is awesome, this is great. And, I thanked him, and he thanked me, and it was cool. It was a great simple thing, but it's pretty cool, I think, man.
Oh yeah, I mean,
we got the former Judas Priest singer helping it out alongside me, and my friend James Rivera also from Hellstar.
Yeah, how could you not? And getting back to Judas Priest, I got to ask you. So we have the first album, Jugulator, which is let's just be honest, it's full blown metal. It's what you kind of expect for the follow up to be for Painkiller, to sound like. But then the next album they did, the one they called Demolition, to me it wasn't as full blown on metal. I don't know if they were. Some of it was a little more like radio metal oriented, if you know what I mean. Like they even had a ballad, and I'll tell you the name of the song I remember was Lost and Found, kind of like an acoustic track. I kind of dug it, but it was quite different from what you'd expect Priest to do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was definitely a different turn. Yeah. So after hearing Painkiller and Jugulator, and I think that some metal fans that kind of
turned off, maybe.
Got turned off to it, or didn't quite connect with it. But again, also I blame the production a little bit on that as well. Yeah. The guitar tones and sounds, and some things were changed, and to me it just sounded a little too polished. Yeah, I still like the record. Yeah. I'm not dissing it.
Oh, I liked it too.
Just my opinion.
I liked it, but it was quite different.
I still think there was some great songs like One on One and Hell is Home.
Yeah.
It still had some solid tracks on it, for sure.
It's definitely in my collection, so I will not say anything bad about it. I dug it. Like I think the track I really dug too was One on One, and I think it was just kind of Tim Owens going in there and wanting to try something different. Say, okay, well, this is what I'm capable of vocally. Let's see what we can do with this.
Right.
Yeah, and again, not a bad album, and I think by that point there was rumblings of Halford wanting to come back, because at that point he had done Fight, and then he had done the 2 album, which fans kind of really got, oh, what is this? And then he kind of went back to his more traditional Priest style metal with Halford, and I think as great as the Halford records were, people are like, okay, Rob, if you're doing this, why not just go back to Priest?
Well, yeah. I mean, I see both sides of the fence there. I mean, I can relate to maybe how he felt, I think, a little bit, he wanted to return to metal, but he still liked doing his own thing, and I think the freedom of that, and the camaraderie with new people and working with other talented musicians, and was still a good, solid, entertaining idea for him, and the Halford band put out some phenomenal records.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
I'm glad he did that, Yeah. I mean, I would have been just as happy if he would have stayed in Priest too. Yeah. But really, I think it was kind of like a double Christmas, because we got all this killer shit with Tim Owens. Yeah. That, let's be honest. Yeah. If Tim didn't get the gig playing with Judas Priest, he might be the guy like me talking to you on the phone right now.
Yeah. Well,
just an underground metal singer in his underground band, and I mean, I'm just spitballing here. You never know.
Yeah, well, it's so true, and I can tell you
obviously, honestly, Judas Priest really put him on the map.
Oh, yeah.
And launched a career for him. It really did.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it, because I think the guy is phenomenal. He's a class act. He's professional.
Yeah.
He's got a great voice. He's a killer singer. If people have a minute to surf the net, go online, go on YouTube, and put in Roadrunner Records, Tim Ripper Owens, Abigail.
Okay.
Tim Ripper Owens does a version with a variety of musicians of Abigail by King Diamond.
Oh, wow.
And it is just fucking awesome.
I gotta check that out. And again, you know, this is just my little opinion here, but I think really, I don't know who else would have possibly been able to fill those huge shoes of, you know, Rob Halford. Only other, you know, known metal singer that I could kind of think of is our mutual friend Sean Peck, because he's a Halford fan. He's kind of got that Judas Priest style. If you listen to any of those Cage or Death Dealer albums, you know. And Sean's told me a little bit about he's got a new Death Dealer album coming out, I think, in November. So that's something we have to look forward from him. But, you know, and that's the thing is when Priest start putting flyers out that they were replacing Halford, they kind of made it known that they didn't want to get a known singer. I think they kind of wanted to go with somebody unknown. And oddly enough, Scott Travis, a Judas Priest drummer, discovered Tim Owens in a Judas Priest tribute band of all places.
Right.
Yeah. And then it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you're aware of this. There was a movie called Rockstar with starring Mark.
It was loosely based on
Tim's life. And then I don't know if you saw that movie, but they had references where the original singer that Mark Wahlberg replaced in the movie was supposed to be Rob Halford's character, and they made references to the fact that he left because he was gay and all that. And it was supposed to be kind of based on Tim's story, but then the producers got a little creative with it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting tidbit there. But I'm kind of, like I was talking last week, I'd actually seen Tim perform as part of the Dio Disciples.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Sean's the one that told me this actually too.
What?
So,
what?
Tim never got a dime from that. Did you know that?
From what?
That movie Rockstar.
Oh, no,
Everybody in the world knows it was based on him and his life.
Yeah, in fact,
he didn't get a dime for it.
And I think that's why originally, before the movie was officially released, people were hearing, it's supposed to be based on the Tim Owens story or the Judas Priest story about him joining the band. And I guess the band and Tim Owens they backed off from endorsing the movie because they said, hey, that's not how it happened, or that, you know, they didn't agree with how it was portrayed in the movie. But it was supposed to be based off of his story. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But you know, I'd seen Tim, like I was telling you last week, perform with the Dio Disciples, and you know, he's a singer very much like in the spirit of Ronnie James Dio. And I think the fact that you know, when you do a project like the Dio Disciples, who are you going to possibly get to fill the shoes of Ronnie James Dio? That's a pretty big vacancy to fill, you know. And so much so that they ended up getting two guys, Tim Owens and Oni Logan, very, very powerful singers who Ronnie had a lot to do with. A lot of people think, you know, Oni Logan was the original singer from Lynch Mob, but George Lynch, you know, he had a lot to do with helping Oni get his start, but so did Ronnie, because I guess Ronnie's wife, Wendy, managed Tim Owens for several years, and they were both very big part of his life, and so I guess that's why Tim was kind of honored when Wendy asked him to kind of, will you be one of the singers for the Dio Disciples? And I mean, he's a perfect fit for that.
Going back a little bit, just in the early days of Tim's career, he was also in a band in Ohio called Winter's Bane.
Oh, I remember that.
The 1993 debut, Heart of a Killer, which is an amazing record. For all you old school metal guys, I mean, if you haven't heard of this, shame on you. You need to. And
see, that was one of those things where probably nobody had ever heard was really aware of Winter's Bane until Tim Ripper Owens joined up with Judas Priest, because it'd be a couple of years later where I think they were signed to an indie label in Germany, and they were an underground band for all intents and purposes. But see now, never a little footnote in metal history, because of, you know, their singer was Tim Ripper Owens. So, you know, how cool is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a phenomenal record. It's Tim Unleashed.
Yeah.
You know,
So
Winter's Bane, Heart of a Killer.
Yeah.
Pick it up.
So let me
also, we have to talk about Beyond Fear.
Oh,
Beyond
yes.
Fear is another project, really aggressive drop tune, just badass record that he put out in 2006.
Wow.
And I believe somewhere around that time frame is when Wendy Dio came into
the picture,
and I think she was managing Beyond Fear, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, how cool is that? Yeah.
What a phenomenal band that was, and what a solid effort. And I've talked to Eric, their former drummer, and John, their guitar player, and they got another album wrote.
Yeah.
Another Beyond Fear record that just never was finished or released. Yeah. Again, I think Tim's just been so crazy busy that it was probably difficult for him to find time to do anything, you know?
Yeah, and then I heard with Dio Disciples, you know, they're kind of continuing the legacy of Ronnie James Dio, and like I said, when I went to see him, they played a whole huge selection of Dio tunes from throughout his career, from not just Dio, but Sabbath and Rainbow, everything you'd expect them to do, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house, if you know what I mean, and it was like Electric Church, man. Everybody was on their feet, and it wasn't so much about getting paid to do the gig. All these guys had played with Ronnie or were friends with him, and they were really doing it for the love of Ronnie, and that's what made it so cool, you know. But I hear the band is kind of working towards, they've been recording like original material, so that's kind of a cool thing. But the Dio Disciples is, you know, continuing the legacy of Dio, but they're gonna be making an original album as well.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And you know, I'd almost forgot about that Beyond Fear band, but yeah, that was one of those bands that again could have been huge, but just the time wasn't right.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But I think
there's been a lot of great bands that Tim's been involved with and been a part of, and just a phenomenal, talented singer, man.
Yeah, but I think I really think next to Dio Disciples, probably the biggest project he's going to be involved in the next several years is the Three Tremors, because Sean Peck, I recently interviewed him, and he's telling me that they've been working on a new album, and he said, you know, in addition to the way the project kind of, you know, just kind of fell together, you know, I kind of got the idea to go ahead with their original idea. I reached out to Tim, I reached out to Harry, and he's telling me, we didn't know what to expect, but he says, once we had the first album done and we went out and started touring behind it, we had no idea we were going to get the kind of response we did. And then he says, we got such a huge response, you know. He said, then immediately I got the idea, okay, well, before we put out another studio, let's try to go in and we'll each record like our live version of each of us singing all these songs and put out like a 3 CD set, and another kind of original idea, if you will. But he says we were totally surprised by the feedback we were getting, you know, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. And I love that's such a metal underground thing, you know, for guys like this to be involved in the project, and that just shows you the love the fans have for what they're doing.
Well, again, you know, metal's always been about the fans. It always has been and always will be. And that's why it stayed alive for so long. Yeah. You know, it's the passion that people have for heavy music.
Yeah.
And, you know, it'll never go away. I mean, it'll change and it'll go through different phases and whatnot, but you know, it's all the same, and I think it's gonna last a lot longer even.
Yeah, and I'll tell you now, a story I have related to Tim Ripper Owens is when I started interviewing bands, probably like as far back as 2007. Might have been 2007, 2009. I interviewed him. I forget what the project was for, but in any event, this was before I started recording these interviews like we're doing tonight. And I was talking to him on the phone, and I was kind of writing down what I was asking, kind of transcribing it, listening back to the tape later. But you know, old style cassettes, if you will, and it's kind of interesting. But I'll tell you, when I was talking to the guy on the phone, it's kind of like you were saying. I listened to this guy's records, you know, at this point, and then I'm talking to him over the phone. Just super cool guy, super down to earth guy, and that's kind of the impression I was left. Like, I on one hand, it was kind of cool because I'm thinking I talked to this guy that was in Judas Priest, you know, and how cool is that? But I just, you know, when I hung up the phone, I thought, what a super nice guy, you know. and that's the memory I'm left with. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just.
And that's why when you when you encounter people like that, that you've listened to their records, I've never met the man in person or anything, but it left me with a good feeling, and then when you see he's had all these opportunities playing all these great records, you're like, you kind of root for the guy, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're also worth mentioning is the records that he did with Yngwie Malmsteen. Perpetual Flame in 2008, then another one, Relentless, in 2010.
Yeah, I never got a chance to hear of a Relentless, but I got Perpetual Burn, and I thought it was a really great album. And see, sadly, Yngwie Malmsteen, he's kind of never met the man, but I've heard things. Egomaniac, sure. Very much like Richie Blackmore we were talking about, and
right.
He's had Yngwie. It's no surprise because he's had several. He's had Jeff Scott Soto, Mark Bowles, and all these other very talented singers, front his band throughout the years. But I thought Yngwie Malmsteen, as successful as he's been, he could have had a much successful, solo career if he'd had like a Tim Ripper Owens, but if he'd done more than just 2 albums with him, even he worked with Joe Lawson. He had all these great singers in his band, but I think that's another reason Yngwie wasn't more. He's successful. He never has to work another day in his life. He doesn't want to. Don't get me wrong, but he could have had a more established band. I think if he'd played with the same lineup or that. But that's a very hard thing to do these days.
Yeah. I mean, it really honestly is. But they're great. They're great records.
Yeah.
The solo record, "Play My Game," that was released in 2009.
Oh yeah.
That features all kinds of different players and people. It contributed to that. And it's got some solid tracks on it.
Yeah.
The Tribe Walls of the Damned, he did 2010, 2011, and 2016.
Yeah.
The Cold Winds of Timeless Days and Creatures Watching Over the Dead.
Oh wow.
Was the last one, but if you're not familiar with some of that, you got to check that out. It's heavy, but it's really good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, we will definitely do that. But I think the next thing you'll be hearing him do is the Three Tremors, and from what Sean Peck tells me, that album's either going to come out like at the very end of this year or beginning of next year. Just I guess they're still kind of finalizing up some of the songs and that.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. Yeah, he did the Three Tremors record in 2019, and a new Revenge album called Enemies and Lovers, also in 2019. Again, it's just a different side of Tim. If you've never heard it, check it out. Just really solid, good, hard rock.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of all been all over the place, but like you said, Tim's been involved in so many great projects, and that's another reason I wanted to. Well, you brought the idea up to me, and I kind of liked the idea because Tim Ripper Owens, he's one of those guys that he's kind of all over a map, done a lot of great projects, but like you brought up today, for example, Beyond Fear, and that was one band that I was kind of a fan of, but oddly enough time has passed that I kind of forgot about it. I'm glad you reminded me, and a couple other people out there probably did the same. So that's the whole point of doing something like this. Is there anything else you have to say, Joe, before we wrap this up tonight?
Yeah, Tim, if you're listening to this, get in there and finish that Beyond Fear record, because a lot of us want to hear it.
Yeah, and I'm if I was a betting man, I'm mostly willing to bet that's one of those things that have kind of been shelved, but I would be surprised if eventually down the line, somebody has masters to that.
It could happen. Never say never.
Yeah. I mean, even the Mighty Kiss, when they got back together, did the makeup tour. They eventually put out that kind of grunge album, The Carnival of Souls, that they had shelved for like 5 years, but it finally got out there. So, if you could just hold on for a minute, Joe, is this something I'd like to talk to you about? But let me stop this, and we're going to be talking again in about a week or so. So, people listening to this, before this gets posted, you're going to be hearing next up. It will be episode 4, where we Joe and I talked about Ronnie James Dio last week. So that'll be going up next. So thanks a whole lot, Joe. I had fun talking to you again. Take care.
Absolutely.